Tonight, we peel back the veil of the familiar to confront a silent, shifting presence lurking at the absolute edge of our home. For decades, we were taught that the solar system was a finished masterpiece, a clockwork arrangement of 8 planets, a few frozen moons, and a quiet, empty boundary where the sun's influence finally faded into the void. We looked at our maps and felt a sense of completion. But as the James Webb Space Telescope turns its golden, infrared eye toward the deepest dark, that comfortable certainty is evaporating. Webb is not just seeing further, it is acting as a truth machine, exposing the unsettling reality that we have spent centuries staring at distant galaxies while remaining fundamentally blind in our own backyard. Beyond the blue marble of Neptune, in a realm where sunlight is 1 billion times fainter than what you see outside your window, the telescope is detecting chemical fingerprints and thermal anomalies that simply should not be there. We are beginning to realize that the edge of our solar system is not an empty wasteland, but a crowded, haunted frontier filled with the wreckage of ancient catastrophes and the shadow of something massive and unseen. The deeper we look, the more we find that our home is not a stable sanctuary, but a scarred relic of a violent past we are only just beginning to decode. To understand the terror of what has just been detected, we must first confront the sheer psychological weight of the scale involved. Most of us visualize the solar system as a neat, compact neighborhood, but that is a comforting lie born of our inability to grasp true distance. We begin our journey at the sun, a blazing furnace that anchors our reality, and we move outward, passing the rocky inner worlds and the gas giants that loom like silent sentinels. By the time we reach Neptune, we are already billions of miles from the heart of our system. Here, the sun is no longer a life-giving orb. It is merely a particularly bright star in a sky of infinite black. But even here, at the supposed limit of our world, we are barely at the beginning. Most people believe that beyond Neptune lies only the cold embrace of interstellar space, yet Webb is revealing that this region is actually a densely packed graveyard of failed worlds, a place where the building blocks of planets were shattered and frozen in time billions of years ago. This is the Kuiper Belt, a vast ring of debris that we once dismissed as a simple collection of ice and rock. Webb's infrared vision has transformed this cosmic cemetery into something far more active and disturbing. While previous telescopes saw only cold, dead lumps of ice, Webb is detecting complex hydrocarbons and methane chemistry on these distant bodies that defy our models of how the solar system formed. We are finding evidence of internal heat on objects so small and so old that they should have frozen solid eons ago. This realization creates a form of scale horror, the terrifying awareness that there are thousands, perhaps millions, of objects out there, some larger than Earth, hidden in a darkness so absolute that no visible light telescope could ever find them. We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we have mapped less of our own outer boundary than we have the Moon. We are living in a house where we have never even peeked into the basement, only to find that the basement is 100 times larger than the floors above it. As we drift further into this great dark, we encounter the first of Webb's truly terrifying anomalies, the invisible wall of the scattered disk. This is a region where the orbits of icy worlds become chaotic and elongated, as if they were thrown there by some immense gravitational violence. Historically, we viewed the solar system as a stable, predictable machine, a perfect harmony of spheres. But Webb is forcing us to adopt the framework of ancient trauma. The outer solar system is not a machine, it is a survivor. It is a scarred landscape of planetary migrations, massive collisions and ejected worlds. We are seeing evidence that the giant planets we know today, Jupiter and Saturn, once rampaged through the system like cosmic wrecking balls, flinging entire planetary systems into the darkness. Some of these worlds were lost to the void forever, but others remain, orbiting in the shadows like ghosts of a family we never knew we had. The terror deepens when we consider the chemical signatures Webb is pulling from the silence. On tiny frozen rocks like Quaoar and Sedna, Webb has detected chemically impossible atmospheres. According to every textbook we've ever written, these objects are too small to hold on to gas, their gravity is too weak, and the cold is too intense. yet the data is undeniable. This suggests that the edge of our solar system is not a frozen tomb, but a place of active cryovolcanism and radioactive heating. A world that is, in a sense, still alive. Some fringe theories even suggest that these thermal signatures could indicate something even more unsettling: artificial manipulation or the presence of ancient dormant probes hidden among the debris. While mainstream science looks for natural explanations, the emotional impact remains the same. The realization that the physics of our own solar system behaves in ways we cannot predict once we leave the sun's immediate warmth. This brings us to the most profound mystery of all, the fear of missing something huge. As Webb scans the outer reaches, it is tracking the subtle gravitational tugs that are pulling on these distant icy worlds. They are not moving randomly, they are being herded, they are clustering in patterns that suggest a massive invisible predator is lurking in the dark, 5 to 10 times more massive than Earth, yet so far away that it takes 20,000 years to complete a single orbit. For decades, the search for Planet 9 was treated as a fringe pursuit, a ghost story for astronomers. But Webb is revealing that the gravity is real. The truth machine is showing us the fingerprint of an object that humanity was never supposed to find. A world that may not even be a planet at all, but something far more exotic, like a captured rogue world from another star, or even a primordial black hole anchored to our sun. We stand at the threshold of a new era of understanding, but it is an understanding born of dread. We are learning that our solar system is a hybrid system, a contaminated relic that may have stolen its most distant members from neighboring stars during the violent infancy of the galaxy. We are realizing that the boundaries we drew on our maps were merely the limits of our own vision. As we prepare to move even further into the dark, toward the hypothetical Oort cloud that wraps around us like a cosmic shell, we must accept the humbling reality that we are still strangers in our own home. The edge of the solar system is not a destination, it is a mirror reflecting back our own ignorance. And as Webb continues to stare into that darkness, we must prepare ourselves for the possibility that the most terrifying thing it detects is not what is out there, but the realization of just how much we have yet to see. We are finally opening our eyes, but the darkness is far deeper than we ever imagined. To cross the threshold beyond Neptune is to enter a realm that modern astronomy is beginning to reframe as a cosmic cemetery, a vast and silent graveyard of failed worlds that never achieved the maturity of the planets we know. This is the Kuiper Belt, a staggering expanse of frozen debris that we once dismissed as a simple collection of stagnant ice and rock, but which the James Webb Space Telescope is now revealing to be a haunted frontier filled with the shattered remains of the solar system's birth. As we drift into this great dark, the sun shrinks until it is merely a particularly bright star in a sky of infinite black, providing 1 billion times less light than what reaches the surface of the Earth. In this absolute shadow, we are forced to confront the scale of the unknown, realizing that we are currently living in a house where we have never even peeked into the basement, only to find that the basement is 100 times larger than the floors above it. These distant objects, which take centuries or even millennia to complete a single orbit, are not merely rocks, they are planetary embryos that were once destined for greatness, but were ultimately broken and frozen in time billions of years ago. Every object in this graveyard serves as a fossil of an ancient catastrophe, a relic of a violent past that we are only just beginning to decode with Webb's golden infrared eye. For decades, our maps of this region were empty, leading us to believe it was a wasteland, but Webb is acting as a truth machine, exposing the unsettling reality that this graveyard is densely packed with millions of unseen structures. The psychological weight of this scale horror lies in the awareness that there may be planets larger than Earth hiding in this darkness, shaping the orbits of everything we see from the shadows. We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we have mapped less of our own outer boundary than we have the Moon, leaving us fundamentally blind in our own backyard. This graveyard beyond Neptune is not the static, frozen tomb described in our old textbooks, but a place that Webb has transformed into something far more active and disturbing. The telescope's infrared vision has begun identifying complex hydrocarbons and unusual methane chemistry on these dead rocks, signatures that defy every model we had for how the outer solar system formed. Methane and other volatile gases should have escaped these small bodies eons ago, yet Webb is detecting chemical fingerprints that suggest these objects are experiencing ongoing, dynamic processes. This revelation introduces the scale of the unknown by forcing us to ask how tiny, frozen worlds at the edge of existence can maintain such complex chemistry without an obvious source of energy. On objects like Quaoar, Gong, and Sedna, the data is undeniable. Webb is pulling chemical secrets from the silence that suggest these worlds are, in a sense, still alive. This discovery challenges the viewer's fundamental understanding of reality, as it implies that the physics of our own solar system behaves in ways we cannot predict once we leave the sun's immediate warmth. We are finding evidence of internal heat on objects so small and so old that they should have frozen solid eons ago, suggesting radioactive interiors or unknown thermal anomalies. The presence of these chemically impossible signatures indicates that the outer solar system is not a frozen relic, but a place of active cryovolcanism and shifting atmospheres. This transforms the narrative of the Kuiper Belt from a quiet cemetery into a crowded, evolving frontier where the dead are beginning to show signs of movement. As we navigate through these shattered remains, we begin to realize that the solar system is not a perfect machine, but a scarred relic of ancient trauma. The orbits of these icy worlds are often chaotic and elongated, as if they were thrown into the darkness by some immense gravitational predator lurking further out. This is the framework of the invisible wall, a region where the standard laws of orbital mechanics seem to break down or point toward a missing, massive influence. Historically, we viewed the arrangement of our planets as a finished masterpiece, but Webb is revealing that our system is a hybrid, perhaps even a contaminated one. Some theories suggest that our Sun once invaded a neighboring star system or was invaded itself, stealing objects like Sedna from another star during the violent infancy of the galaxy. This reframes the graveyard as a place of stolen property and alien debris, a ghost solar system hidden in total darkness and invisible to everything but Webb's infrared eye. The emotional impact of this discovery is a shift from curiosity to a profound sense of dread, as we realize that the boundaries we drew on our maps were merely the limits of our own vision. Every new observation of unusual methane chemistry or a thermally active rock is a reminder that humanity may know less about the outer solar system than we ever dared to assume. The scale horror of the Kuiper Belt lies not just in the number of objects, but in the realization that something as large as a super-Earth could have remained hidden for decades while shaping the history of our home. In this atmospheric tour of the graveyard, we must accept that the outer solar system functions like Earth's deep ocean once did, mostly unseen, barely explored, and psychologically terrifying because of the scale of the unknown. Webb is uncovering the hidden scaffolding of our system, showing us that the map of the unknown is expanding outward faster than we can comprehend. The telescope's ability to detect individual photons from sources billions of light-years distant is now being used to interrogate the shadows of our own backyard, and the findings are breaking our established paradigms. We are finding that the scale of the unknown is not just a distance, but a depth of complexity that was previously invisible to our primitive, visible light instruments. The discovery of complex hydrocarbons on these small bodies suggests that the building blocks of life or the remnants of exotic chemical cycles are drifting in the dark far from the light of the sun. This creates a high-retention curiosity loop, as every answered question about a methane signature on a distant rock opens dozens of new mysteries about how such a rock could stay warm. We are forced to consider that the solar system's boundary is far stranger than modern astronomy currently admits, and that the graveyard of failed worlds may actually be a nursery for entirely new categories of cosmic phenomena. The terror is not that Webb found monsters in the dark, but that the data proves we have been blind to the most active parts of our own system for our entire history. As we continue to stare into this cosmic cemetery, we find that the golden mirror of Webb is reflecting back not just light, but the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of our own ignorance. The edge of the solar system is a mirror, and what it reveals is that the darkness is far deeper and far more active than we ever imagined. To move beyond the Kuiper Belt is to leave the last familiar markers of our home behind, but it is here that we encounter the most profound disturbance in our cosmic history, the Sedna anomaly. Discovered in the freezing deep, Sedna is a world that simply should not exist according to every law of planetary formation we have ever written. Its orbit is not a circle, but a jagged, impossibly elongated path that carries it hundreds of billions of miles away from the Sun, far beyond the influence of Neptune or the gravity of any known planet. While the planets we know live in a compact, stable neighborhood, Sedna spends most of its 10,000-year journey in a lonely, lightless void where the Sun is nothing more than a cold, distant point of light. This bizarre trajectory is the singular fingerprint of what astronomers are now calling ancient trauma, a realization that our solar system is not the peaceful, isolated sanctuary we once imagined, but a scarred survivor of a violent stellar hit-and-run. For decades, we viewed the solar system as a closed system, an island universe born from a single cloud of dust that settled into a perfect clockwork machine. But Sedna's presence at the edge of the dark breaks that machine. It is too far away to have been shaped by the gravity of our giant planets, yet it remains tethered to our Sun, caught in a gravitational no-man's land that defies explanation. To account for its existence, we must look back to the solar system's infancy, a time of crowded chaos when the Sun was born in a dense cluster of sibling stars. The leading academic theory suggests a terrifying possibility that the Sun once invaded a neighboring star system, or was invaded itself in a moment of extreme gravitational violence. As our Sun passed within a few hundred astronomical units of another star, the two systems began to tear at one another, ripping worlds from their original orbits and exchanging them like cosmic spoils of war. This means that Sedna is likely not a native of our system at all, but a stolen world, alien debris captured from a passing stranger eons ago. This theory reframes our entire reality, suggesting that our solar system is a hybrid or contaminated system, a collection of objects that were never meant to be together. We are living in a house built from the wreckage of a collision we don't remember, surrounded by ghost planets that belong to a star that has long since drifted away into the galaxy. The psychological weight of this realization is immense. It suggests that if we were to land on Sedna, we would not be standing on a piece of our own history, but on the surface of a truly alien world that our Sun hijacked during a moment of celestial predation. James Webb has recently turned its infrared eye toward this distant outlier, and what it detected has only deepened the dread. Despite being far too small and too cold to maintain any kind of gas, Webb has found evidence of a chemically impossible atmosphere on Sedna. According to every textbook we have ever written, a world this far out should be a dead, frozen tomb, yet the telescope is pulling chemical fingerprints from the silence that suggest otherwise. Webb has identified complex hydrocarbons and methane signatures that indicate Sedna is experiencing active cryovolcanism or possesses a hidden internal heat source. This suggests that the interior of this stolen world is still alive, perhaps fueled by a radioactive core that refuses to go cold even in the absolute zero of deep space. The existence of an atmosphere on such a tiny, remote body is a direct challenge to our understanding of physics. It implies that the outer solar system behaves unlike anything we predicted, operating under rules that remain hidden in the shadows. Some fringe interpretations of Webb's data even suggest that these thermal anomalies and impossible gases could point to something more unsettling. That these distant, thermally active objects might not be natural rocks at all, but ancient dormant machines or engineered probes hidden in the darkness. While mainstream science searches for natural explanations, the emotional impact remains the same, the realization that the physics of our own backyard becomes unpredictable and terrifying once we leave the Sun's immediate warmth. Sedna's orbit serves as a map of a catastrophe. If you follow its path, you are tracing the shockwaves of an event that nearly destroyed the forming solar system before it ever truly began. This ancient trauma narrative transforms the Kuiper Belt and the regions beyond into a scarred landscape of planetary migrations and massive collisions. We are seeing evidence that our own giants, Jupiter and Saturn, may have once rampaged through the system, flinging entire planetary populations into the void while passing stars reached in to steal what was left. Sedna is a survivor of this violence, a witness to a time when the solar system was a place of total, unbridled chaos. The dread of the Sedna anomaly is fueled by the fear of missing something huge. If the sun could steal a world like Sedna, what else did it capture that we haven't found yet? Astronomers are now forced to consider that the Oort cloud, which wraps around us like a cosmic shell, may contain not just comets, but entire ghost solar systems, rogue planets, moons, and binary worlds that drifted into our sun's reach from the interstellar void. We are realizing that the boundaries we once drew on our maps were merely the limits of our own vision. As Webb continues to stare into the dark, it is acting as a truth machine, revealing that we are fundamentally blind to the most active and crowded parts of our own system. This revelation shatters the false certainty of previous eras of astronomy. We once believed that Neptune was the final frontier, then Pluto, and then the Kuiper Belt. Each time we were proven wrong by the sheer scale of the unknown. Sedna proves that there is a vast, hidden scaffolding of matter and gravity shaping our lives from the shadows. It reminds us that we inhabit a small island of luminous matter floating within an ocean of invisible substructure and ancient, stolen relics. The terror of what Webb has detected at the edge of our solar system is not just the presence of a single, impossible world, but the realization that our home is a haunted frontier. We are finally opening our eyes to the fact that the solar system is not a stable machine, but a scarred relic. We are a hybrid family of native worlds and stolen strangers, orbiting a star that has a history of violence we are only just beginning to decode. Sedna sits at the heart of this mystery, a frozen red world that refuses to be silent, its impossible atmosphere and bizarre orbit screaming of a past that shouldn't exist. As we prepare to look even further into the dark, we must accept the humbling reality that we are still strangers in our own backyard, and the next secret Webb pulls from the shadows may redefine what it means to be home. We must now move past the graveyard of failed worlds and the stolen relics of ancient star systems to confront the most profound disturbance in our cosmic backyard, the presence of a silent predator. For decades, astronomers have been haunted by a subtle but persistent anomaly at the absolute limit of our vision. They noticed that the most distant icy worlds of the Kuiper Belt were not drifting randomly. Instead, they were being herded, their orbits tilted and clustered together as if by an invisible hand. This realization birthed the search for Planet 9, a hypothetical world 5 to 10 times more massive than Earth, lurking in a darkness so absolute it takes 20,000 years to complete a single circuit around the Sun. But as the James Webb Space Telescope acts as a truth machine, stripping away the comfort of our old maps, a far more terrifying possibility has emerged from the fringes of theoretical physics. What if the reason we have never seen Planet 9 is not because it is too far away, but because it is not a planet at all? What if the object shaping our solar system from the shadows is a primordial black hole, a gravitational anchor no larger than a grapefruit, yet possessing the mass of 5 Earths? This is the fear of missing something huge in its most visceral form. We have spent centuries cataloguing the points of light in the sky, assuming that if something were massive enough to govern the architecture of our home, it would be visible. But a primordial black hole is a ghost, a relic of the Big Bang itself that does not emit or reflect light. It is a point of near infinite density, an ancient object older than the solar system itself, that may have been captured by our sun's gravity during the violent infancy of the galaxy. This transforms the outer solar system from a quiet frontier into a landscape inhabited by a silent predator. It suggests that we are living in a house where a hidden weight is warping the floorboards, yet we can never see the object responsible. The scale horror lies in the contrast, an object small enough to hold in your hands, yet heavy enough to dictate the fate of entire planetary populations. James Webb is uniquely equipped to hunt this predator, not by looking for the object itself, but by tracking its infrared influence. While visible light telescopes are blinded by the deep dark, Webb can detect the subtle thermal anomalies and the invisible wall of the scattered disk where this predator's gravity is most apparent. We are finding that the scale of the unknown is not just about distance, but about the depth of our ignorance. We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we have remained fundamentally blind to the massive structural forces in our own basement. If Planet 9 is indeed a black hole, it reframes the ancient trauma of the solar system. It suggests our system is not a stable clockwork machine, but a contaminated relic that has been shaped by the presence of an exotic, ancient interloper for billions of years. The psychological weight of this theory is devastating because it implies that our understanding of physics, the very rules we use to define home, may be incomplete. Some argue that the strange orbits we observe aren't caused by a black hole or a planet at all, but are evidence of modified gravity, suggesting that Einstein's laws break down at extreme distances. However, the data Webb is pulling from the silence continues to point toward a massive, concentrated source of gravity. The truth machine is showing us the fingerprint of an object that humanity was never supposed to find. We are starting to realize that the ghost solar systems of the Oort cloud may be anchored by these primordial predators, silent sentinels that have drifted through the interstellar void for eons before finding a home at our edge. As we stare into the dark with Webb's golden mirror, the fear of missing something huge becomes a constant companion. We are forced to accept that the solar system is a haunted frontier, and the most terrifying thing Webb might detect is the confirmation that we are not alone in our own backyard. Whether it is a frozen mini-Neptune or a grapefruit-sized tear in the fabric of space-time, the predator in the dark is a reminder of the scale of human capability to finally look into the shadows and confront the truth. We are moving further into a realm where sunlight is 1 billion times fainter, and as the light fades, the influence of the unseen only grows stronger. We are finally opening our eyes to the reality that the edge of our world is not an empty destination, but a mirror reflecting back our own existential dread. The predator is waiting, and for the first time in history, we have the eyes to see the wake it leaves in the dark. The deeper we venture into the absolute dark of the outer solar system, the more the James Webb Space Telescope begins to function as something far more unsettling than a mere observer. It has become a truth machine, stripping away the comfortable, frozen myths of the Kuiper Belt to reveal a reality that defies every textbook ever written. For generations we were taught that the edge of our world was a static graveyard, a place where the building blocks of planets were shattered and frozen in time billions of years ago. We viewed these tiny, distant objects as fossils, dead, inert relics of the solar system's birth that had long since surrendered their internal heat to the vacuum of space. But as Webb turns its golden infrared eye toward these supposedly dormant rocks, it is detecting thermal anomalies and chemical fingerprints that simply should not be there, suggesting that the edge of our solar system is not a frozen tomb, but a place that is, in a sense, still active and alive. This revelation introduces a profound form of scale horror, the terrifying awareness that we have spent centuries staring into the depths of the universe while remaining fundamentally blind to the dynamic activity occurring in our own cosmic backyard. The true terror began with the detection of what scientists are calling chemically impossible atmospheres. On tiny frozen worlds like Quaoar, Gonggong, and the impossibly distant Sedna, Webb has pulled signatures from the silence that should be physically impossible for objects of their size. According to every established model of planetary science, these bodies are far too small to maintain an atmosphere. Their gravity is too weak to hold on to gas, and the extreme cold of the outer reaches should have long ago locked every molecule into a permanent, frozen solid. Yet the data Webb provides is undeniable. It is identifying complex hydrocarbons and unusual methane chemistry on these dead rocks, signatures that indicate a level of chemical sophistication and active processing that was previously thought to be reserved for much larger, warmer planets. We are finding evidence that these tiny worlds are not just lumps of ice, but are exhibiting impossible gas signatures that suggest they are hiding a source of energy we cannot yet explain. This discovery forces us to adopt the Webb is a truth machine framework, where the telescope's ability to see heat signatures invisible to any previous instrument exposes the flaws in our fundamental understanding of physics. In the great dark, where sunlight is 1 billion times fainter than on Earth, Webb is detecting thermal anomalies that indicate these objects are far warmer than they have any right to be. This suggests the presence of unknown cryovolcanic processes or radioactive interiors that are still churning with heat eons after they should have gone cold. The implication is devastating. The outer solar system is not a quiet, predictable machine of clockwork orbits, but a crowded, haunted frontier filled with active, evolving worlds that behave unlike anything predicted by our simulations. We are living in a house where the basement is not just dark, but where the floorboards are warm to the touch, and we are only just beginning to realize that the scale of our ignorance is far greater than we ever dared to imagine. The presence of these atmospheres on such small bodies has sparked intense debate within both academic and fringe communities, as the truth machine continues to provide data that breaks our established paradigms. While mainstream science looks for natural, if exotic, explanations, such as hidden internal oceans or radioactive decay, some fringe interpretations suggest even more disturbing possibilities. Within high-retention Reddit lore and speculative forums, these thermally active objects are being reframed as something other than natural rocks. They are described as ancient, dormant machines or engineered probes hidden in the outer darkness. The idea is that these impossible chemical signatures and thermal leaks are not the breath of a living planet, but the exhaust of ancient technology lurking in the shadows. While there is no verified evidence for such claims, the emotional appeal of this theory persists because it taps into our primal fear of hidden predators and the realization that the physics of our solar system becomes unpredictable once we leave the sun's warmth. Webb's observations of objects like Quasar have revealed that even its rings behave in ways that challenge the laws of gravity. The telescope is identifying complex materials that should have drifted away or collapsed, yet they remain held in place by forces we are still struggling to decode. This reinforces the ancient trauma framework, suggesting that the outer solar system is a scarred relic of a violent past, where planetary migrations and massive collisions left behind a landscape of anomalies. These tiny worlds, with their impossible atmospheres and thermal anomalies, may be the survivors of a time when the sun invaded, or was invaded by, another star system, capturing alien debris and rogue worlds that do not follow our local rules of chemistry. The more Webb looks, the more it reveals that we are strangers in our own home, surrounded by objects that exhibit impossible traits because they were never meant to be part of our story. As we sit with these findings, the fear of missing something huge begins to take root. If tiny rocks the size of a few hundred miles can maintain atmospheres and generate heat, then what else is hidden in the vast, unmapped stretches of the scattered disk and the Oort cloud? We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we have mapped less of our own outer boundary than we have the Moon. Webb is revealing that the map of the unknown is expanding faster than we can comprehend, and that the true scale of our solar system is a landscape of ghost systems and predators in the dark that have remained hidden simply because we lacked the eyes to see their heat. The telescope is not just finding new objects, it is uncovering a new category of cosmic phenomena, active, chemically rich, and thermally vibrant worlds that exist in total defiance of our expectations. This chapter of our discovery ends not with a sense of completion, but with the unsettling realization that the outer solar system is active, evolving, and unpredictable. The truth machine has shown us that the edge of our world is not a destination, but a mirror reflecting back our own ignorance. We are finally opening our eyes to the reality that the darkness is far deeper and far more active than we ever imagined. The terrifying atmospheres Webb has detected on these small, icy bodies are just the first fingerprints of a reality we are not yet prepared to face, a reality where the very laws of physics may be incomplete and where the dead rocks of our backyard are whispering secrets of a history we are only just beginning to hear. We are no longer looking at a graveyard, we are looking at a haunted frontier, and the light Webb is capturing from these impossible worlds is a warning that the most profound mysteries are not 13 billion light-years away, but are right here, staring back at us from the edge of the dark. To continue our journey, we must now push past the scattered disk and the theoretical orbit of the predator in the dark, venturing into a region so vast it defies the geometric logic of our inner worlds. This is the Oort cloud, a colossal spherical shell of icy debris that wraps around our sun like a cosmic shroud, extending halfway to the neighboring stars. If the Kuiper Belt was a graveyard, the Oort cloud is a silent ocean of unimaginable depth, where the sun's gravity is so weak it barely holds on to the trillions of objects drifting in the deep. Here, the scale horror of our solar system reaches its absolute peak. We are talking about a territory so expansive that light itself, the fastest messenger in the universe, takes over a year just to cross its inner boundary. In this absolute shadow, where sunlight is 1 billion times fainter than what you see on Earth, we are forced to admit that we are living in a house where we have never even peeked into the basement, and that basement is 100 times larger than the floors above it. As we expand the map into this great dark, the James Webb Space Telescope begins to act as our only guide, an infrared truth machine capable of seeing heat signatures where every other instrument sees only a void. Webb is revealing that this region is likely not the empty wasteland of simple comets we once assumed, but a crowded, haunted frontier. This has birthed the ghost solar system theory, the disturbing possibility that the Oort cloud hides entire planetary systems, rogue worlds and binary systems orbiting each other in total darkness. These are the lost siblings of our solar system, planets 5 to 10 times more massive than Earth that were flinging into the void during the ancient trauma of our system's birth. Because these worlds emit no visible light and reflect no sunshine, they have remained invisible to every telescope in human history, existing only as faint whispers of infrared radiation that only a machine like Webb, cooled to near absolute zero, can detect. Imagine the psychological weight of this realization. We have spent centuries cataloguing the points of light in the sky, assuming that if something were massive enough to govern the architecture of our home, it would be visible. But the Oort cloud functions like Earth's deep ocean once did, mostly unseen, barely explored, and psychologically terrifying because of the scale of the unknown. In this cosmic ocean, comets are merely drifting icebergs, while rogue planets move like silent predators in the dark. These ghost planets may not be lonely, they could be accompanied by their own moons or even exist in binary pairs, locked in a gravitational dance for billions of years without ever seeing the light of a star. The fear of missing something huge is no longer a theoretical concern, it is a structural reality, as we realize that a Neptune-sized planet could remain unseen for decades while quietly shaping the history of our backyard. Webb's detection of chemically impossible atmospheres on smaller icy bodies suggests that the objects in the Oort cloud might be far more active than our textbooks allowed. If a tiny rock like Sedna can exhibit thermal anomalies and methane chemistry, then what is happening on a rogue world the size of Earth hidden in the deep Oort shell? These ghost systems could be fueled by radioactive interiors or hidden internal oceans, allowing them to maintain a form of life in the absolute zero of deep space. Some fringe interpretations even speculate that these thermally active regions could be remnants of ancient stellar encounters, or, more disturbingly, dormant engineered probes hidden among the debris. While mainstream science searches for natural explanations, the emotional impact remains the same, the realization that the physics of our own solar system behaves in ways we cannot predict once we leave the sun's immediate warmth. The ghost solar system theory is further supported by the ancient trauma framework, which suggests our solar system is a contaminated relic rather than an isolated island. During the Sun's infancy, it likely passed through a crowded stellar nursery, a moment of gravitational violence where our star may have invaded a neighboring system and stolen its planets and debris. This means that many of the objects Webb is now sensing in the Oort cloud might be captured exoplanets, aliens in our own home. We are living in a hybrid system, surrounded by invisible infrastructure of stolen worlds that have remained hidden simply because we lacked the eyes to see their heat. The map of the unknown is expanding faster than we can comprehend, and Webb is exposing the unsettling reality that we are still strangers in our own home. To look into the Oort cloud with Webb is to confront the limits of our own vision. We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we have mapped less of our own outer boundary than we have the Moon. This creates an existential dread, the realization that the universe and even our own neighborhood remains a haunted frontier mostly unseen by human eyes. The Oort cloud is not just a destination for comets, it is a mirror reflecting back our own ignorance. As the golden mirror of Webb stares into that darkness, it is tracking the subtle gravitational tugs of objects that humanity was never supposed to find, ghosts of a family we never knew we had, orbiting in the shadows of a solar system that is far larger, older, and more complex than we ever dared to imagine. The terror of what has been detected at the edge of our solar system is the realization that the great dark is not empty. It is a crowded, evolving, and unpredictable landscape of ghost solar systems that have been watching the sun from the distance since the dawn of time. We are finally opening our eyes, but the darkness we are finding is far deeper than we ever imagined, and the silent predators lurking within it are only now beginning to emerge from the infrared silence. Our address in the galaxy is becoming sharper and more detailed, yet it is an address that includes a massive, invisible basement filled with relics of a violent past. We are only just beginning to decode. We stand at the threshold of a new era of understanding, but it is an understanding born of the dread that we have been blind in our own backyard for far too long. As we drift further into the soundless reach beyond the Kuiper Belt, we must confront a possibility more unsettling than a hidden planet or even a predatory black hole. For years, the scientific community has been obsessed with the search for a massive, invisible object, Planet 9, believing that only a physical weight of 5 to 10 times the mass of Earth could explain the strange, clustered orbits of the worlds we have found in the dark. We assumed the solar system was a stable, predictable machine governed by the elegant laws of Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. But as the James Webb Space Telescope continues to act as a truth machine, exposing anomalies that defy our models, we are beginning to realize that the invisible hand herding these distant objects might not be a planet at all. Instead, we may be witnessing something far more devastating to our understanding of existence, the total breakdown of the laws of gravity as we know them. This intellectual mystery introduces a concept that challenges the very foundation of our reality, a theory known as modified Newtonian dynamics, or MOND. The premise is as simple as it is terrifying. Perhaps gravity does not weaken at extreme distances in the way our textbooks have always claimed. For centuries, we have operated under the false certainty that gravity is a universal constant, a fixed rule that applies the same way in our gardens as it does at the edge of the galaxy. But MOND suggests that in regions where acceleration is incredibly low, such as the lightless outskirts of our solar system, gravity may actually stay stronger than it should. This would mean that the strange clustering of icy worlds like Sedna and the herding of Kuiper Belt objects are not caused by the pull of a hidden planet, but by the fact that the sun's gravity is behaving wrongly. To accept this is to accept that our fundamental understanding of the universe is preliminary, perhaps even primitive. For decades, every time we encountered a gravitational anomaly we couldn't explain, we invented a new, invisible ghost to fix the math. When galaxies rotated too fast, we proposed dark matter, a substance that makes up 85% of all matter yet remains completely invisible to every instrument we have ever built. When the expansion of the universe began to accelerate, we proposed dark energy, a mysterious force that comprises 68% of everything in existence, yet we have no physical description for what it actually is. We have built a cosmic house where the walls are made of things we cannot see or understand, all to keep the laws of Einstein intact. But what if there is no dark matter? What if there is no Planet 9? What if the truth machine is revealing that the equations themselves are the error? This realization creates a profound sense of scale horror, not because of the distance, but because of the fragility of our knowledge. We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we find ourselves blind in our own backyard, unable to explain why the objects in our basement are moving the way they are. If gravity behaves differently at the edge of our solar system, then the entire map of the unknown must be redrawn. It would mean that the invisible gravity we feel pulling on distant worlds is not a sign of a hidden predator, but a sign that the laws of physics are not universal. This would be a paradigm shift as violent as the moment Galileo's telescope overturned the idea that the Earth was the center of creation. It implies that we are living in a universe where the rules change depending on where you stand. The devastation of this mystery lies in the Hubble tension and the broader cosmological crisis that Webb has accelerated. The most precise measurements of our universe are now telling us contradictory things, and the gap between them is widening with every new piece of data. We find ourselves in a rare position where our most successful theories are systematically failing to match the reality that Webb is pulling from the silence. If gravity is broken at the edge of our solar system, it might explain why we see impossible galaxies in the early universe that are too massive and too mature for their age. It would mean that structure in the cosmos, from the first stars to the great attractor, assembled under rules we have yet to identify. The search for Planet 9 has effectively become a search for the truth about gravity itself. If Webb eventually finds a physical planet or a black hole, our current physics will survive, comforted by the presence of a new neighbor. But if the darkness remains empty and the orbits continue to cluster, we will be forced to confront the terrifying conclusion that Einstein's laws are merely an approximation of a much deeper, much stranger reality. We would have to admit that the clockwork arrangement of our 8 planets is just a small, local bubble where the rules happen to make sense to us, while the rest of the cosmos operates on a scale of physics that humanity is only just beginning to hear. This is the intellectual big rip, the tearing apart of our scientific confidence. We are moving toward an ending of total uncertainty, where the fate of the universe, whether it expands forever, collapses in a big crunch, or is torn apart by phantom energy, remains a three-way split because we cannot characterize the forces at work with enough precision. The truth machine has revealed that the universe is not just vaster than we imagined, but that it is creative, energetic, and capable of rapid organization in ways our equations cannot capture. We are looking at a haunted frontier where the ghosts are not hidden planets, but the broken remnants of our own theories. As we stand at this temporal edge of existence, staring into the great dark with Webb's golden mirrors, the terror is no longer what we might find, but the realization of how little we actually know after centuries of study. The edge of the solar system has become a mirror reflecting back our own scientific humility. We are like a civilization living in a single room, assuming the rules of that room apply to the entire palace, only to find that once we open the door to the basement, the floor vanishes beneath our feet. The breakdown of gravity is the ultimate ancient trauma of our species. The realization that we are strangers in our own home, governed by forces that we have only just begun to name, toward an ending we cannot yet determine. We are finally opening our eyes, but the darkness of our own ignorance is far deeper than we ever dared to imagine. As we drift further into the absolute shadow of our cosmic backyard, where the sun is reduced to a distant, cold spark, we must confront a mystery that feels less like physics and more like archaeology. For generations, our maps of the outer solar system were blank, leading us to believe that the region beyond Neptune was a quiet, empty wasteland of simple ice and rock. But as the James Webb Space Telescope acts as a truth machine, stripping away the frozen myths of the Kuiper Belt, it is revealing a landscape that is strangely, disturbingly active. The telescope has begun identifying thermal anomalies and chemically impossible atmospheres on tiny, frozen worlds like Quaoar, Gonggong, and the impossibly distant Sedna. According to every textbook we have ever written, these objects are too small to hold on to gas, their gravity is too weak, and the absolute zero of deep space should have long ago locked every molecule into a permanent, dead solid. Yet the data Webb provides is undeniable, pulling chemical fingerprints from the silence that suggest these worlds are, in a sense, still breathing. This revelation has birthed a profound form of scale horror, the terrifying awareness that we have remained fundamentally blind to the dynamic activity occurring in our own cosmic basement. While mainstream science searches for natural explanations like radioactive interiors or hidden internal oceans, a more unsettling possibility has emerged from the fringes of high-retention internet law and speculative astrophysics. This is the machine hypothesis, the idea that some of these thermally active trans-Neptunian objects might not be natural rocks at all. Instead, they are being reframed as ancient, dormant engineered probes or sleeping machines hidden in the darkness. Under this framework, the impossible methane signatures and thermal leaks detected by Webb are not the breath of a living planet, but the faint, residual exhaust of ancient technology lurking in the shadows. The emotional weight of this theory lies in a specific kind of melancholic wonder, rather than immediate alarm. It suggests that the edge of our solar system is a haunted frontier, a place where the building blocks of planets were not just shattered, but where the relics of an even older history might be gathering dust. Imagine the psychological weight of realizing that we have spent centuries cataloging points of light, assuming that anything massive or significant would be visible to our eyes. But the truth machine is showing us that the outer solar system behaves unlike anything predicted by our simulations, operating under rules that remain hidden in the absolute dark. We are living in a house where the basement is not just cold, but where certain floorboards are warm to the touch, and we are only just beginning to realize that the scale of our ignorance is far greater than we ever dared to imagine. The presence of these sleeping machines can be synthesized into the broader framework of ancient trauma. We now know that our solar system is likely a hybrid or contaminated relic, a survivor of a violent infancy where our sun likely invaded or was invaded by a neighboring star system. In that moment of extreme gravitational violence, worlds were ripped from their original orbits and exchanged like cosmic spoils of war. This means that the objects Webb is now sensing in the great dark might be captured alien debris, stray members of a family we never knew we had. If the sun could steal a world like Sedna, it is not a leap to consider that it may have also captured the automated sentinels of a passing star, anchoring them to our edge for billions of years. These ghost systems could be drifting in total darkness, completely invisible to everything but Webb's infrared eye, waiting in an ocean of unimaginable depth. The fear of missing something huge becomes a constant companion as we look at the data from objects like Quaoar, whose very rings behave in ways that challenge the established laws of gravity. Webb is uncovering a hidden scaffolding of matter and energy that suggests the outer solar system is not a frozen tomb, but a place of active cryovolcanism and shifting exotic chemistry. If a tiny rock the size of a few hundred miles can maintain an atmosphere and generate heat, then what is happening on the larger unseen structures hiding in the Oort cloud? We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we have mapped less of our own outer boundary than we have the Moon. This creates a structural reality where entire planetary systems, moons, and binary worlds could remain unseen for decades while quietly shaping the history of our home from the shadows. There is a profound loneliness in the idea of these engineered probes drifting for eons in a realm where sunlight is 1 billion times fainter than on Earth. If they exist, they are orphans of a stellar encounter that happened before humanity ever looked at the stars. They would be survivors of planetary migrations and massive collisions, relics of a past that shouldn't exist according to our local rules of chemistry. While mainstream science continues to search for natural sources of heat, the emotional impact of the machine hypothesis remains. The realization that the physics of our own backyard becomes unpredictable and terrifying once we leave the sun's immediate warmth. We are finally opening our eyes to the fact that our home is a scarred relic, and the next secret web pulls from the infrared silence may redefine what it means to be alone in the universe. As the golden mirror of Webb continues to stare into the dark, it is tracking subtle signatures of a universe that is far more creative and energetic than our models allowed. The truth machine has revealed that we are no longer looking at a graveyard, but at a crowded, evolving frontier filled with ghost systems and predators in the dark. The terrifying atmospheres Webb has detected are just the first fingerprints of a reality we are not yet prepared to face. A reality where the dead rocks of our backyard are whispering secrets of an ancient, perhaps artificial, history. We stand at the threshold of a new era of understanding, but it is an understanding born of the dread that we have been blind in our own backyard for far too long. The edge of the solar system is not a destination, it is a mirror reflecting back our own existential dread and the realization that the darkness is far deeper and far more active than we ever imagined. We are finally looking into the shadows, only to find that the shadows have been watching us back for billions of years. To truly understand the solar system as it exists today, we must first unlearn the myth of the finished masterpiece that has dominated our textbooks for centuries. We have been conditioned to view our cosmic neighborhood as a clockwork arrangement of 8 stable planets, a few frozen moons, and a quiet, empty boundary where the sun's influence eventually fades into the void. We looked at our maps and felt a sense of completion, a comforting certainty that we had finally mastered the architecture of our home. But as the James Webb Space Telescope turns its golden infrared eye toward the deepest reaches of the great dark, that certainty is evaporating. Webb is acting as a truth machine, exposing a reality that is far more unsettling. Our solar system is not a sanctuary, but a scarred relic of a violent past. We are only just beginning to decode. Through the framework of ancient trauma, we are forced to see the solar system for what it really is, not a perfect machine, but a survivor. The evidence is written in the chaotic, elongated orbits of the scattered disk and the bizarre, impossibly far trajectory of Sedna. These are not the marks of a system born in isolation. They are the scars of ancient catastrophes. We are beginning to realize that the outer reaches of our home are filled with the wreckage of planetary migrations, massive collisions, and the shadow of something massive and unseen lurking in the dark. The deeper we look, the more we find that the edge of our solar system is a crowded, haunted frontier, and the realization that we have spent centuries staring at distant galaxies while remaining fundamentally blind in our own backyard is the true source of our existential dread. The first major scar we must confront is the stolen origin of worlds like Sedna. Competitors often treat our system as an isolated island, but Webb's data points toward a much darker history of theft and gravitational violence. A major academic theory suggests that in the sun's infancy, while it was still nestled in a dense cluster of sibling stars, it may have invaded a neighboring system or been invaded itself during a close stellar encounter. In that moment of extreme gravitational upheaval, Sedna and its icy siblings were likely ripped from their original star and captured by our own. This reframes the solar system as a hybrid or contaminated system containing alien debris, a collection of stolen property that should not exist where it currently resides. We are living in a house built from the wreckage of an ancient cosmic hit and run, and the ghost solar systems of the Oort cloud may be filled with more of these captured exoplanets, hiding in a darkness so absolute that only Webb's infrared eye can find them. The trauma did not stop at the theft of alien worlds. It continued within our own borders. We are now seeing evidence that the giant planets we know today, Jupiter and Saturn, were once cosmic wrecking balls that rampaged through the system in its youth. These giants did not form in their current stable positions. They migrated, their immense gravity flinging entire planetary systems into the darkness. Some of these ejected worlds were lost to the interstellar void forever, but others remain, orbiting in the shadows like ghosts of a family we never knew we had. This ancient trauma is responsible for the invisible wall of the scattered disk, a region where the building blocks of planets were shattered and frozen in time billions of years ago. The Kuiper Belt is not just a collection of ice and rock, it is a cosmic cemetery filled with the shattered remains of planets that never quite formed, a testament to the violence that shaped our reality. Perhaps the most terrifying detection Webb has made in this scarred landscape is the presence of chemically impossible atmospheres on tiny, frozen bodies like Quasar and Sedna. According to every law of physics we have written, these objects are too small and too cold to maintain any gas. Yet the signatures of complex hydrocarbons and methane are undeniable, suggesting that these dead rocks are experiencing active cryovolcanism or possess hidden internal heat sources. This transforms our understanding of the outer solar system from a frozen tomb into a place that is strangely, disturbingly alive. Whether this heat comes from radioactive interiors or, as some speculate, artificial manipulation, the implication remains the same. The physics of our backyard behaves in ways we cannot predict once we leave the sun's warmth. This brings us to the fear of missing something huge. The realization that a silent predator like Planet 9 may be lurking in the dark, 5 to 10 times more massive than Earth, yet so far away it has remained unseen for decades. Whether it is a frozen mini-Neptune or a primordial black hole the size of a grapefruit, its gravity is real, and it is herding the orbits of everything we see. We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we have mapped less of our own outer boundary than we have the Moon. We are living in a house where the basement is 100 times larger than the floors above it, and we have only just begun to realize that we have no map for what is down there. Webb is revealing that we are, quite literally, blind in our own backyard. The map of the unknown is expanding faster than we can comprehend, and the scale of the unknown is creating a form of scale horror that challenges our fundamental understanding of reality. The true terror Webb has uncovered is not just the monsters in the dark, but the magnitude of our own ignorance. We are finally opening our eyes to a system that is scarred, hybrid, and unpredictable. The solar system is not a masterpiece, it is a survivor of ancient violence, and we are merely the residents of a haunted frontier, standing at the edge of a great dark we have only just begun to name. The golden mirror of the Webb telescope continues to stare into that darkness, waiting for the next secret to emerge from the scars of our past. We return, at last, to the silent, golden mirror of the James Webb Space Telescope, a machine that has become the final arbiter of our cosmic reality. As we stand at this temporal and spatial edge of existence, we are forced to confront a truth that is far more unsettling than any single detection of an impossible atmosphere or a predatory black hole. The true terror revealed by Webb is not what it has found, but the devastating realization of just how much remains hidden in the shadows of our own backyard. For centuries, we functioned under a false certainty, believing our solar system was a finished, clockwork masterpiece, a stable neighborhood we had fully mapped and understood. We looked at our charts of the 8 planets and the quiet ice of the Kuiper Belt and felt a sense of completion. But the truth machine has shattered that illusion, exposing the fact that the edge of our solar system is not an empty wasteland, but a crowded, haunted frontier, mostly unseen by human eyes. We have mapped the surface of Mars with exquisite detail, yet we have mapped less of our own outer boundary than we have the Moon. We are living in a house where we have never even peeked into the basement, only to find that the basement is 100 times larger than the floors above it. This realization introduces a profound form of scale horror, an existential dread born from the awareness that massive structural forces are shaping our lives from a darkness we are only just beginning to penetrate. We now know that beyond the blue marble of Neptune lies a graveyard of failed worlds, a cosmic cemetery filled with the wreckage of ancient catastrophes and the fingerprints of ancient trauma. The solar system is not a perfect isolated machine, it is a scarred relic of a violent past, a hybrid system that may have stolen its most distant members from neighboring stars during the chaotic infancy of the galaxy. Webb has shown us that our home is contaminated with alien debris and haunted by ghost solar systems drifting in total darkness, completely invisible to any instrument but its own infrared eye. This is the true nature of the frontier, a vast, unmapped ocean where rogue planets move like silent predators and where the very laws of gravity may begin to break down. The fear of missing something huge is no longer a fringe speculation. It is the fundamental condition of modern astronomy, as we realize that a super-Earth or a primordial black hole could remain hidden for decades while governing the architecture of everything we see. Yet as we stare into this deep dark, the tone of our investigation must shift from dread to a quiet, existential wonder. The same data that reveals a haunted frontier also serves as a monument to the scale of human capability. We are a species that exists for mere decades, yet we have constructed a $10 billion machine to see across billions of light years and into the coldest corners of our own neighborhood. The engineering required to maintain Webb at nearly absolute zero, 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, represents one of humanity's greatest technical achievements. We identified 344 single points of failure, any one of which could have ended our vision forever, and we overcame them all. This is the remarkable fact that balances the terror. That matter, forged in the same ancient stellar furnaces we now observe, has organized itself into conscious minds capable of investigating its own origins. The carbon in our cells and the gold on Webb's mirrors are relics of the same cosmic violence, scattered by supernovas into the interstellar medium, and eventually extracted by intelligent beings to build an instrument of self-discovery. The edge of the solar system, therefore, is not a destination or a final wall, but a mirror reflecting back our own ignorance and our own potential. As Webb continues to stare into the infrared silence, it is tracking the subtle signatures of a universe that is far more creative, energetic, and capable of rapid organization than any of our models predicted. We stand at the threshold of a new era where we must accept scientific humility, acknowledging that our most successful theories are merely approximations of a reality of far greater complexity. The impossible galaxies at the edge of time and the chemically impossible atmospheres in our own backyard are the first links in a chain of understanding that stretches across 13 billion years. We are the universe's way of knowing itself, an archaeological expedition through cosmic history that has finally found the tools to look into the shadows. As the night settles around us, we close with the image of Webb's golden hexagonal mirror, a 6.5-meter eye standing as a sentinel at the second Lagrange point. It remains there in the absolute cold, protected by its tennis court-sized shield, waiting for the next secret to emerge from the great dark. It does not blink, it does not turn away from the scale horror or the ancient trauma that it has uncovered. Instead, it stares deeper, fueled by the same curiosity that led our ancestors to count the stars and imagine rivers of light in the sky. The darkness is far deeper than we ever imagined, and the frontier is more haunted than our maps allowed, but we are no longer blind in our own backyard. We have finally opened our eyes, and while what we see is terrifying, it is also a reminder that we are part of something vast, ancient, and enduring. The journey into the unknown has only just begun, and the mirror is waiting for the light.